Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to episode number 64 of the White Knuckle Podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning back into the White Knuckle Podcast, episode number 64. I just wanted to preface today's show by saying that this show was taped in a completely different context than what we're using it in. We're really using it today as a means of introducing you to Mr. Scott Buckley. A lot of you may or may not know him. If you don't know him, you're going to enjoy listening to him, and he's going to be part of our upcoming podcast series that we'll announce here in the next couple of weeks. That's going to be an incredibly fun time. But with that, here is our conversation with none other than Mr. Scott Buckley. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast. Today, I am joined yet again with my esteemed co-host, Todd Pringnitz, down in Iowa. Todd, what's going on today?
Not much, man. I've been spending a lot of time in the office, just kind of in between shed hunting and property management and dealing with, just basically, trying to make a living. I wish it was where I could just dive into, shed hunting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week or whatever. But to be honest with you, I'm kind of burnt out of it. But the guy we have on tonight, I am so excited to talk with Scott Buckley. He is a Southern Iowa bow hunter, gun hunter extraordinaire. And I've been following Scott for a long time. And Scott, you're there, correct?
Yes. How's it going, guys?
Really good.
Yep, thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, dude, I couldn't be more excited because, Scott, I don't honestly know if I've ever met you in person or not. We probably have at the Classic or something.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've really gotten to know Scott through social media, through Facebook, and just watching his posts, seeing his posts, and just, I guess overall, I've just gotten this wonderful friendship feeling. Like I kind of feel like he's like one of my mentors, even though really we don't know each other that well. But he's the type of person that represents to me what hunting is all about and should be all about. And just, dude, through everything you've done, Scott, you can just tell you just love hunting whitetail deer. And you're an absolute killer of monstrous beasts on both public land. We're going to get into exactly where you go to hunt all these deer, but I know you have killed some Boone and Crockett caliber monster bucks on public land. And just in the way that you've represented these animals in your pictures and the respect you show these animals in your posts, like, dude, I'm like your number one fan. I love what you've been doing, and just, I can't be more excited to have you on our show. So thank you, and welcome to the show, Scott.
Yeah, thank you very much.
There's no way I'll top that.
So, Scott, just tell us a little bit, like, I've seen all your posts from all these years, so I feel like I know you, but just if you can fill in anybody. Scott's the most humble guy in the world, so he's never going to brag about anything, but I can tell you, this guy's got a wall full of whitetails.
Oh my God.
That is, dude, like, he's the type of guy that when he talks, you listen. So now I'm going to stop talking, Scott. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. I grew up in Michigan. I'm 51 years old. I grew up in Michigan. I used to, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years ago, I started traveling out of Michigan and out of state hunts, because the area I grew up in, like most areas of Michigan, it was tough to kill a 100-inch deer. So I just started traveling Ohio, Kansas, Nebraska. I'd go all over the month of November and, hunt different public lands. And that's kind of how I got my start. My favorite course was Iowa, but it'd take, at the time it took 3 years, I think, to get a tag. And so I said one day I'd like to move out there when I retired. And, well, the economy got bad, and I'm in construction. Economy got bad, especially in Michigan, and I think it was 08 it started falling apart. I said, well, here's my chance. I came out to Iowa, started looking for work, and got into just some fabulous work. My business has tripled since I've been out here. I moved out in 2009 and just been going strong since then. And you know, I've hunted public hard and heavy, and I just got my first homeland here this be my second year owning. I went through 2 falls. I figured getting up there in age and that public land kicks my butt. You know, it's a lot of work.
Dude, you're correct. I didn't realize you were from Michigan. I don't know. Yeah. I guess I never really looked into it. Where are you from in Michigan originally, Scott?
I grew up in Port Huron area over on the east side.
Oh, okay. So you're kind of on the opposite side of the state, but oh my gosh. So no wonder why we became friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Born and raised there. My family's still all there, and my brother, he comes out hunting, and my dad.
I'm so much more impressed.
Yeah.
Like,
just a
holy
drive
cow.
I've had.
Holy cow. All right. So you moved to southern Iowa. We're not going to get into specifics because, you know, hey, dude, the guy's got to be able to go on and hunt. But is bow hunting your thing?
Oh yeah, that's 90%. I bow hunting primarily, and I get the early muzzle loading tags in Iowa. Is my second most you know, what I like to do. Since I got my own property here, I've been getting some landowner late gun tags, but that's kind of secondary to my bow. And you know, bow's always been my thing. Most of the big deer I've shot have pretty much 90% of them been bow. I shot a couple big ones early muzzleload season, but most everything's been with the bow.
And what I can tell you about Scott is, like, the guys, and myself included, and I didn't kill a lot of deer on public land when I was hunting it, but I sure learned a lot. When you're from a state like Michigan or Pennsylvania or even Minnesota or Wisconsin or any place you name that just doesn't have the best hunting, and if you want to kill some of the bigger dominant animals, you have to hone your craft and become so much better of a hunter than all the guys around you. And so,
yeah, big time.
Dude, now it makes sense why you are doing what you're doing on Iowa public land, because, dude, you've cut your teeth on some of the toughest areas of the country as far as competition with hunters go. So that explains a lot to me. And now I'm like, I changed my whole perception. But, dude, how much fun is it to own property after you've been doing this for all these years? Dude,
I'm in love with it.
And it doesn't make it. Some people say it makes it easier, and certainly it gives you different perspective. But, like, you know, that I've been, like, you get enamored with it initially, and you like, it's just another learning process, because now you have to save your property, man. You can't just go in and burn the poop out of it and just go call it and go crazy, because it's expendable property, so to speak, like public land can be. Now that it's your own piece, it changes the way you have to hunt. So patience becomes a virtue. And so I'm assuming you probably still spend some time on public land or other properties other than your own property. Oh, yeah. And so Tell us, how are you going into this next coming season? You've been through shed season. I've been watching you and your family has been like, dude, you guys are having the time of your lives. And it's so much fun to watch, dude. All the pictures I've seen on Facebook. Tell us about your shed season and what you're doing right now, I guess, planning for both your public land hunts and your own property.
I'll use, for example, like last year, this time of year. This year, I've been on public 5-6 times looking for sheds. I haven't found any real big ones. I've been on my own property a little bit more, but, like, take, for example, last year at this time, I knew of a couple really big, probably pushing 180 deer on public. And I went in and just started searching for their antlers. You know, I ended up finding one side off each buck this time last year, last March. So that kind of set up, you know, I had my own land, but I used the public land because I hate to put the pressure all on, you know, my own. I go where the biggest deer are, and eliminates a lot of pressure off my own land. I have 240 acres there, but still, it don't take much to, booger up a piece, if you're in there every day. So, yeah, these 2 bucks I was after last year, I found each one of their sheds, one off each buck, and I kind of did my routine with the cameras throughout the summer, kind of in locations where I thought they'd be, bedding areas and stuff. I started picking them up maybe July, August in there. I started getting some pictures of them, trying to figure them out. Once I started getting pictures, then I just bombed the area with cameras. Try to get a better idea. But then I wouldn't go in, usually I wait about a month. I try to remain patient for a month, and usually I'm pretty good at it. You don't want to go and check your cameras every weekend, because them big ones will just, disappear quick.
Real quick, Scott, when you're running cameras on state land, you're not worried about other people seeing them?
I try to keep them out of areas, but there for a while, I was running probably about 20 cameras on public the last 6-7 years, and I'd average about one loss a year. And I figure, if I lose one $140 camera and I kill a 170-inch buck, it's worth the payoff. So
that's easy math.
The worst thing I hate is when I lose a camera. All that information's on that card, and a couple times I've lost cards. The guys, they won't steal your camera, but they'll take your card, and that's the part I hate the worst. Somebody takes that, and they could have, so much history of the buck you're after on there. That's what I really don't like. But
I don't want to take you off topic. I have a tendency of getting on these things. We're going to talk about that again later, but I still want to stay on. The reason that you're on the show is because you've certainly done more on public land than I ever will. Jason's been hunting public this last year. So, dude, anybody who hunts public and is into that, we have a profound respect. So we definitely want to stay on a little bit on topic with that. So you run your trail cameras. You're trying to identify different bucks. What's your process for... dude, you live in Iowa, so it's awesome. But for the guys who are traveling and stuff, let's say guys who are going to be hunting in Iowa this coming season, how do you identify or try to find your bucks in the summertime? You can do so much with trail camera. Do you do a lot of glassing from the road? Do you drive around a lot? What kind of sign or ideas can you give guys who are going into a new area based on what you know of hunting, some of the best areas around? But, dude, those big deer on public land are just rare. They're very rare. They're rare anywhere, man. Dude, on all the private land I've hunted here for 15 years, Boone and Crockett caliber animals are rare. So you're like making it so hard when you're, hunting on other properties and public land where other people are hunting with you. So this is what I think we really want to dive into is like your identification process. Jason, I think you probably would agree. I guess that's what I'm curious.
The first question that I wrote down, since Todd generally hogs the airwaves, I have to make sure I write my stuff down so I can get it in when I get a chance. I'm just kidding. I'm really not kidding.
It's the truth, man.
It is the truth. My first question is, okay, how is it that you identify an area that you're going to target? Is it because obviously you've got some history with pieces of property. So this last year in Wisconsin, for however many years of my life, let's say the first 25, I hunted relatively the same property, and it was flat and it was square, and we hunted the edge, and it was 40 acres, and then give me 400 acres of timber, and I just got lost. And I didn't get lost in the timber, but I got lost in going, oh, wow, this is beautiful. Where do I start? So where do you start?
This time of year, by far is the best time to scout and look into areas. like I said, I'm getting a lot of history with the land now. So I'm always trying new areas. But take, for instance, when I first came out, or like going to Kansas, when I lived in Michigan, I would study aerial photos faithfully. I did every aerial photo of the area. Well, back when I first started, we looked at topographical because, aerials were fairly new. And I look at the aerials and just kind of look for pinch points, funnels, all that good identifying stuff. But like I say, all my friends from Michigan, they talk about coming out. I said, if you can pick the one time a year to come out and scout, is this time of year. You can read so much off of the sign, the big rubs, the scrapes, the runways. I mean, just so much. The woods is alive with sign this time of year. Some of my buddies listening, they come out and, that's, by far the best. You find lots of big rubs, just getting remote areas and look for sign. I just beat the woods constantly. I'm always scouting 24/7. Now if the guy comes out, just in the fall during hunting season, don't do any prior scouting, you still got to study your aerial photos, try to find places far off the beaten path. I've had guys, friends show up and they don't have maps, they don't have nothing. They just say, give me a woods, and those are the guys that usually struggle, they're just going out, you can scout and go, but it really ups your odds if you can do a lot of time with an aerial photograph or like I said, come out in March. But if you
boots on the ground, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do. I contribute most of my luck just to so much time in the timber. It's unbelievable. Every weekend I'm out there. I work every day of the week like most people, 5 days a week. But come Saturday and Sunday, I'm out somewhere just, running around constantly, looking for stand spots, scouting, buck sign. And this time of year, by far is the best. Or like when I used to go to Kansas, when I used to go to some of the out of state, we'd plan a turkey hunt, early season turkey hunt into them areas. So it wasn't just a scouting trip. It was, we could hunt and scout at the same time. And I recommend that to people, if you want to do two things, schedule a turkey hunt. And then, while you're hunting, you can scout too. Go ahead, Todd.
Just you're ringing a chord with me. Just on we can talk about it, but I've always said, come hunting season, I want to have options. And even though where I end up killing most of my buck, it's probably 50-50 right about now when it comes to, I can kill a big buck that I plan on killing out of a set now with experience and time. So I have all these sets in blinds, in about 50% of the time I can do it out of an existing set with my knowledge, but about 50% of the time I have to make moves and figure out where to go. So even if you can get some just basic jump point, I call them jump point stands, or like people call them observation posts or whatever.
I'm the same way.
Same way. All you're doing is you're doing 50% of the work up front so that you can enjoy 50% more hunting basically later on. And occasionally, and I mean occasionally, you get it right and one comes through and you get a crack at them, the first or second time you're hunting a spot, or third or whatever. But like, Scott, dude, we've talked on this show, and I own my own property now and I've been hunting it for years. And I don't think that I've killed a big mature whitetail out of the same tree stand or blind twice ever. It's always been a new set, a new tweak, a new something. Now, there's something in what your background is. You have to be analytical and like an engineer or something technical, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm real anal about a lot of my, setups
and isn't it like we were doing a podcast and talking with Lee Lukoski maybe a month ago or 2 months ago.
Yeah. I heard
and
that.
Lee's as anal as he's even more anal than I am, but he's an engineer. A lot of those things I've always had a good time talking with him about, because it's like, I always call it problem solving. So like, no matter, whether you're working on an engineering project or trying to cut time out of your drive time to work every day. Like, I'm always trying to make myself more efficient and solve problems, I guess, And so like in the world of whitetails, like it really, you got to break down to like kind of goals and like what you're trying to do. And then you have to, implement the right process and or tools, whatever, to achieve your goal. So for you, every year, it looks like I'm as you've been becoming more and more successful, it seems like you're having the time of your life, and I'm kind of getting in that same mode where you're having more and more friends and family hunt with you, and you're able to share all of your knowledge, all of your experience, your property, and kind of start to have fun. Not so much just crazy hunting. People get crazy about trophy hunting and stuff. To me, What I've seen from you, dude, I think you got it figured out. All the pictures you post, in the look on your face, the way you take the pictures, everything, dude, I've always been a huge fan. Tell us about what makes you tick, what gets you going on whitetails, and what is your advice to people who want to have fun hunting?
I just a passion I've had ever since I was a little kid. Just 12 years old, picking up that bow and arrow and heading out there and chasing them. Just, I don't know, it's a passion. I live for it every day, and I guess remain humble and give it your best. Work hard, and that's the biggest thing to success. You just work hard, enjoy it. I don't know what else to say, really.
How do you manage flying under the radar, maintaining a quiet profile, so to speak?
Yeah.
I think a lot. I know just based on the conversations we've had, there's been quite a few people who have wanted to get you on their podcast and get you to talk because of your success. You're the type of person that everybody wants to talk to because you're a good person. You're a steward of wildlife, a trophy killing machine who doesn't care about the promotion or advertising or marketing side. You're pure. You're untainted, is what I like to call.
Yeah.
And what we love from the white knuckle, from everything we do, dude, it's all about the deer. Like, it's all about the animals. Like, and you gotta due diligence and everything. But the one part of this that's always been tough for me is flying under the radar, Michigan style. No decals on the trucks. Like, I learned my lessons over the years. So if you want to like give a little bit of advice, and I don't know if I think we all kind of go down that road where we had like
that pertains to me. Yeah,
dude, we had the scent lock stickers because we're all from Michigan. We had the scent lock stickers. I had Lone Wolf. I had my bow sponsors, the bowhunting.com, whatever. And then you're like, I started hunting with Andre DeQuisto and different guys who were, going after specific huge animals. And like, dude, I mean, if anything, they had a PETA sticker on their vehicle, or driving an old Chevy freaking sedan, and parking on the side of the road, looking like it was broken down. Like, but that's the kind of attitude you have to have if you want to survive on public. And like, I'm still there, dude, and I hunt private, and I don't even want the landowners to know if I'm there. You know what I mean? I'm just so paranoid about that. Tell us how you, is that how you roll on private and public still?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've always kept up. Years ago, Iowa come out with them license plates. They had the deer and the pheasants and everything on, and I got them for my truck. And it was like a year or two after my main truck I hunt with, I ended up going back to regular plate just because I didn't want a deer license plate. People see that license plate and they know I'm in there, hunting that spot, or if they get to know my truck. And I keep all stickers and some of my public pieces I access through, I get permission on private, and then I access, it saves me time. I'll go knock on doors, and I've got a few pieces that I go into private, and I even keep a low profile in there. So people don't know. I have a couple friends say, well, you say too much on Facebook, but I don't say where, but I just enjoy showing my pictures, and, it's just part of, I love, showing the things I do. It's my passion, but, I keep a real low profile. I try to avoid, hunters the best I can, out there.
It's kind of common sense. If you make yourself, it's kind of like going back to mafia. I'm a huge fan of watching all the mafia stuff, freaking gangster stuff. So you want to be Draper Don, and be like the loudmouth, and you're going to be in prison. You're going to get killed, or you're going to be in prison. All right, or you can fly under the radar, keep your money in the bank or under your bed or whatever. Drive the old crappy Cadillac or whatever they're driving. But dude, it's an ego battle though, isn't it? And I think we all, dude, when we're all young and we start getting hunted, and this is nothing against anybody with any stickers on their truck, man, I was there. I've been there, but it kind of goes back to goals. What are your goals? Are your goals to become known in the world of hunting? Or are you hunting for yourself? Are you trying to kill, a mature dominant buck? Are you trying to kill the biggest buck in the county? And dude, Scott, I already can guarantee it. You've been through the whole rigmarole of it all. You've started and gone through all those stages. And so many guys, I think now, which is unfortunate because of TV and it makes it so accessible. And it's like instant gratification. So many guys now are trying to skip those steps of like the 10 years of screwing up and trying to figure things out. And they're trying to film all of it at the same time. Can you imagine, Scott, dude? I mean, like, I know you've been through it. Jason's been through it. Jason, can you imagine filming the first 10 years of your hunting?
No, I'm glad that there was. I'm glad that I didn't have a camera. That would have been like. I can remember my first morning bow hunting, sitting in the tree. I swore I saw. I think I saw a snuffleupagus across the field. It was crazy. I was scared as hell, but no, that'd be crazy.
I have so much respect for you guys that film and hunt, because my goal has always been, me and the deer, and I up to this point, I can't imagine, that's just one more obstacle in the way. It's just so much more work to have especially self film, or put another cameraman in the tree. And I look up to a lot of these guys that, it takes a lot more work, more scent out there, more work. And I've had a friend of mine approach me this year about being on a TV show, and I've hemmed and hawed, and it's just so much more work for me. It's still hard work for me to go out, set it up in a tree stand, let alone worry about a cameraman over my back, and you got to get this just right and that just right. I just want to go out and enjoy myself, and it'd be great to get it on film, but at this point, that's not my ultimate, that it isn't my ultimate thing. I just want to enjoy myself, and, I feel I can do better, just,
you can definitely do better not filming.
that we can
exactly.
We can promise you that.
Dude, for me, I don't know when it happened, but I fell in love with the process of telling the story, and just
most people love it. I probably would, but
it goes back and forth. All right, I went, and when Kyle and I when he came down and started filming me for the first time, we were two dumb Michigan kids and didn't know any better, and we were going to rule the world. And all these years later, I self-film now. I love it. To me, that's the next challenge in my I get to hunt every day, dude. I'm so lucky. You know, I get to put the time in. So, but to have a cameraman along, that just became a hindrance. It became unfun.
Oh yeah.
And so filming is a lot more work, a lot more setup and all that, but I'm so used to it. It's just a part of my routine, my process. So to me,
I imagine
it's so much more enjoyable because I can control all the timing. If I need to get out at 11:37 because it's a kill day and I have to be out there, I can do that. If you got a cameraman in camp, you got you're paying the guy, you know, full time or whatever. So, when we first got into it, we were very arrogant and thought that, well, you know, you can't self-film and get good quality and all that. Now, all these years later, now I'm self-filming against everything I always said I would do. But to me, now, a lot of times I have to beat the bucks I'm hunting 2 or 3 times and actually to do it on camera, self-filming. But, dude, to me, it's just the next extension of my hunt. So I guess that gives me my next question for you is you've accomplished as many whitetail goals as anybody could imagine, dude. You've killed a ton of deer. Like your wall is unbelievable. It looks like you've killed all kinds of different big game animals in North America. What's your next goal? What do you enjoy the most nowadays? Now that you own a piece of property, I'm assuming you're probably going to start getting crazy, a little nutty about the old food plots and all the other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. That's starting. But yeah, I guess my primary thing is whitetail deer. I've hunted, you know, elk. I hunted caribou with Ted Nugent back in 93 up in northern Quebec. You know, that was a blast. I've hunted mountain lion in Idaho and wild boars in Oklahoma, and you know, I've traveled around quite a bit hunting, but I've shot a couple bear. We're going on a bear hunt this spring, Saskatchewan. I'm taking my boy. My boy is 21. This will be his first kind of big game hunt besides deer. That's the first thing I broke my teeth on was bear up in Ontario when I was in my early 20s. So we're really excited to go on this bear hunt in Saskatchewan. But my main animal, I mean, a lot of that stuff I'm putting on the back burner since I got property now. That property is just so much work and work and time and money and I just, you know, big whitetails as I love chasing them and you know, between my property is only 20 minutes to a half hour from all the public land I've hunted over the years. So,
yep.
You know, I go back and forth between, you know, chasing them on public and I got some pretty good ones on my own piece and just getting into the food plot things. That's just amazing. I just love it. You know, doing the beans and corn and the brassicas and the clovers. This year I frost seeded a bunch of clover fields. That first time frost seeding. That was so cool, you know, doing that stuff. And so, yeah, that's my drive probably is whitetail. We might do something here and there with my boy, you know, something else. Whitetail drives me. It's my passion. I have a love for them. And
God bless America.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude,
all the way.
I mean, like one of the things that we mentioned earlier that we talked about that I want to bring back up is you mentioned about leaving your best stuff alone, and I try to pound. There's certain things on the White Knuckle podcast that we try to pound into guys' heads. One of them is don't call so much. Don't rattle so much. And the other part is leave your best stuff alone until you literally can't take it anymore. And that's the time you go in and kill a giant. And usually if you can hold off until late October, mid-November, whatever, those are the spots. So like if you can give one great story about leaving something alone or leaving a place alone in a lesson that you learn from that kind of you can help maybe some people who just bought a piece of property just like yourself. For me, I only own 63 acres, Scott. So I'm really tempted year round to be out on my property, but when it comes to, beginning of September, I just literally, I won't even let my wife walk outside of our house hardly. There's areas I just completely leave alone, and there's areas I pound the crap out of. If you can give us a great story about leaving something alone, tell it to us.
For instance, this year, I was after them 2 big deer on Public, 180 plus deer, probably great big ones, and so I didn't want to put any pressure on my land, because you get into a lot of that land early season, you're just gonna booger it up for the rest of the year. So I concentrated on this Public piece through early season, and even on Public, I bounce around. I hardly ever sit the same stand more than, never 2-3 days in a row. I might, on rare occasions, I might go in one weekend and then the following weekend, but, I set up a lot of stands in the fall and bop around, and then, I hang and hunt on some of them. Like if I see deer one place, I move, but I keep the pressure off, like my private piece. I hunted a lot early season down to Public, and then come November, I started picking up some daylight activity of some pretty big deer, and that's when I moved in that last couple days of October. I stayed totally off this part of the farm, because I knew that's where this one big one, the one I ended up getting, he hung out at the back part of the farm, and I moved in. I think I sat in one spot over a food plot. I seen him. I don't know, I took a week off work. I think it was the first week in November, the second week, like the 5th. I think it started on 5th or 6th was on the weekend this year. And I seen him on a Monday night. He come out with a doe across the field a couple hundred yards away, the one I was after. He went back in. I didn't hunt that stand again for probably a week. I went around because the winds were changing direction. So I went in this draw that came up to this food plot. I went back in there, I think 2 nights later, maybe a Wednesday or something. And it was getting dark. I was starting to put my equipment together, and I heard something crunching in the leaves, and coming down the hill. And I flipped my binoculars up. It's getting pretty dark. I'm just wrapping up for the night. And there's my buck standing there 25 yards away looking at me in the dark, And then I seen his yeah, I've been after
that
him.
feeling, right? In your freaking gut.
Yeah, and I was literally sick, because I thought he ain't going to come back through here again, and I seen his nose go up, because the wind, it was getting near dark, and the thermals are dropping. And I knew if he just kind of seen a form of the tree, it might not, but I seen his nose go up. I was kind of hunting with a southeast wind going down, but it was kind of drifting a little bit right where he come down the hill. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I totally stayed out of there. I think it was, maybe a week later, I went to another stand out kind of on the edge of the field, and 10:30 in the morning, I had tons of buck activity that morning. 10:30, I was relaxing back, and all of a sudden I looked up, and he come running right in out of that draw where he was.
Yep.
A few nights
That's
before.
Where he lived, man. That's where he freaking lived.
Where he came in at dark, and I put the hammer on him then, and 170 class deer, but 10 point, but. I just stayed out of there. I totally stayed out of the farm through I don't think I even went in it in the early season. I was concentrating on, I'll do that a lot. Now that I got land, I'll do that a lot on the Public. I'll hunt them deer, early on in the Public, because that's when there's hardly any pressure on the Public lands. Everybody comes down the Public lands during November. So I'll hunt a lot early season. That big one, that my picture's been, you've seen that, you like that picture of me on the hillside with that one I shot in 2015. Yeah.
Dude, it's the coolest, it's the coolest trophy photo ever, I think, because it just shows a magnificently monstrous whitetail and one dude who just is so happy to have killed it that he doesn't even care about holding it up. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, that buck I killed October 3rd, early season on public. I'd had pictures of them down below during the summertime, few pictures here and there in this like bottom, and then there was private land cornfields it'd be to the north and to the east. Well, I hadn't probably been up there in a month, and I went up, set my stand that morning, in the dark. Yeah, it was morning. I set it up. I'd hunted that spot before, so I was familiar with it. I set it up that morning, October 3rd. It was 2015. It was exceptionally cold. We had like 3-4 mornings of below zero temperature, so we had that cold front. And usually them big ones are in their beds, early October. They're already up in their beds in the morning, but I knew it was cold, so I snuck in there, got that. It was 3/4 of the way up a little finger ridge that came down to this bottom, this brushy bottom, and then you had your cornfields out there. So I figured I might catch him, going up that finger up into his bedding area. And I think it was about 8:30. I looked down, and here he comes right up that finger, just like it was, magic. And here he comes, and I think I made a 25-yard shot. He probably went 60 yards and went down. And that was the first early season big deer that I'd ever killed of that caliber. He was a 5.5-year-old buck. I'd had sheds of them from the year before and pictures of them the year before, and they aged him at 5.5. And that was being an early season buck. I mean, that just topped the cake. Be able to take a buck that caliber early season for me was, especially on public, was exceptional. In the rut you can get lucky, and they come running, but.
Scott, to kill a buck like that on 1,000 acres completely controlled is really hard to do in the beginning of October, let alone on public. But was your first time in for him that particular season?
Yeah. Yep, that was my first time into that spot. I went into the same area because the winds were different. The day or two before, I went back to the. I had couple other big bucks back in there. I went back to the west, I guess, but I knew he was in there. There was 2 big ones in there, so I slipped up in there that morning. The winds were right, and it was cold. Because even early season, I don't hunt a lot of mornings. If I do, it's back in deep, and catching them on the edge of their bedding areas. You got to be close to their bedding areas in that early season, and usually a cold front. If it's a warm day, they're already up in there. But it was below, freezing that morning, and they were running a little late, and
you caught them by surprise, and there had been nobody in there. And you know what, guys? Anybody who's listening. You want to kill huge bucks, it's not going to be on your 5th time in, okay? Oh, yeah. And so you've got to, and even if you're hunting the same spots, like what I've even found here, Scott, as you start to manage your own farm and hunt it year after year after year, coming from Michigan, I was kind of in the same boat you were. I was constantly hunting new property, so you never really had a history, so you are always starting from zero. Once you start to establish that history and start to figure out how these deer work, even on my property, dude, I have to get extremely creative on just accessing blinds in spots to make them assume even if it's your second time hunting, but you got to take a different way in. Like Jason was here, and Dan Info was here, and we were I was showing them, some of my different blinds and stuff that I have set up, and sometimes when you have other people standing there saying, "Yep, you're right," or "Yeah, it's a no-brainer." That's where they would be bedded, and they can see a comment or whatever. But dude, you've got to have a creative side to whitetail hunting if you really want to kill some of these deer year after year. And some people, I always thought it was like you had to have a sixth sense about whitetails. Like when I used to hang out with Andre and Brad Cooner and some of these guys, and Dan Infold and Adam Hayes, and see the deer they killed. And when I pull into camp with one of these deer, I'd look at these things and be like, dude, I've never even seen an animal with one side of the rack of that buck on both. I mean, it was so far beyond Christmas than it was like a dreamland. But you start to pick up on their characteristics of these guys, their personalities, how they hunt, where they're hunting. And dude, there's no cookie cutter scenario or science to it. And that's what I think really becomes the big deal, is being able to adapt to these situations and just figure out a way to do things differently. It doesn't mean it takes money. It doesn't mean it takes 100 tree stands. It doesn't mean it takes a tractor. You just have to have a brain, and you have to be willing to put the work in. And that's where you get that. I can see it in everything you do and everything you talk about. I can imagine the stories about these different bucks. And like, I mean, the public land bucks, you've probably had to come in ways that nobody else would ever thought to.
Yeah.
Or at different times of year. Different times of year than anybody would think of. So what's your favorite, what's your favorite bass backwards tactic compared to what all your other buddies do, your other family members who are, maybe not as serious about it, but like, what's your favorite thing or one of your favorite things to talk about?
As far as access, like that most guys won't do. Like I hunt one spot on public. I got to cross a river, and I take hip waders or whatever. Most guys I've ran into non-residents that they just go up to the river, no hunt. I've killed so many. I think 4 or 5 of my big deer I've been crossing this river. Whether it's got foot of water, 2 foot of water, I'll take hip waders with me, get across the river, put them in my pack, take them off, put my regular boots back on. Just kind of odd stuff like that gets me back into the areas where, and then I got buddies too, but they'll take kayaks in, I haven't done the kayak thing. I got kayaks now where I've thought about it, but they'll take kayaks in that are, it's out of the ordinary and gets them back into areas and even boats. I got one friend, he takes a pontoon boat, and this one spot he hunts on a lake, and then he throws his kayak.
That's the way to party right there, bro.
Yeah, he takes his kayak and unloads it off the pontoon, heads back into the little rivers, But I got one more cool story of being able to adapt. I'll make it quick. Being able to adapt to a hunting situation. This is one of them spots I was talking where I crossed the river. I went back across the river, went back in another few hundred yards, and I had a stand set up, and it was the middle of November, maybe 2014. One year we had extremely cold temperatures for the rut. I mean, there was snow that one morning. It was
3 years ago or 4 years ago.
It was 14. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I remember, dude. I remember. I froze my ass off.
Yeah, I mean, it was cold in the teens in the daytime, or maybe even colder. Yeah, that one, I sat 2 days back in this public land. I was going to sit from daylight till dark in a tree stand. And what day? I think it was the second day. The bucks used to come back in there about 10 o'clock in the morning. And that's another thing I believe in, sitting all day in the rut, especially if you're back in a ways. I mean, I would see so many bucks in this spot from 10 to 2. It was unbelievable. I was sitting in this stand, and about 60, 70, 80 yards away, I kept seeing all these bucks, after 10 o'clock round this corner. And I'm saying, dang, I after about the 5th, 6th buck, and then one really big one, I said, I'm going over there.
You're throwing it all down the tree.
Yeah, I went down, I got everything out of the tree, and I seen a fallen down big oak tree over there where all these deer were. And I've always been a tree stand person, I never liked it on the ground. I can't sit still. I'm kind of hyper. I can't sit still on the ground. I just feel uncomfortable on the ground. Well, all these deer were crossing. So I went over to this oak tree. It was a big, great big one with big branches. I tucked in behind this oak tree and on the ground, and all of a sudden here comes that biggest buck I just seen. Probably, well, first I think an 8-pointer went by me. Like a 130 8-pointer went by me. I wasn't there 10 minutes, and he come by me at 25 yards on this main, like an old logging trail through this area. And I was in the middle, deep in the timber. And I think I was there half hour. All of a sudden, here comes that one buck that I seen a little while before. And he came 25 yards, and I don't remember if I mouth grunted or he just stopped. But anyway, I took a shot off the ground, and drilled him, watched him drop. He was 160 class. I think he had 13 or 14 points on him, low 160s. But that was just a situation of adapting. You know, I was sitting in a tree stand. I could have just felt all comfy and stayed in that tree stand, but I got down and made it work. You know, I snuck in underneath that tree, and even though I was uncomfortable, I knew that's where the deer were, and I killed, you know, a big deer that morning. And it paid off being so cold, sitting for 2 days out in the cold. But yeah, that's that little story I had.
I'll say this much, and then Jason's going to have a turn because I've been talking way too much. But dude, how many bucks do you have to walk, whether it's 50 yards, 20 yards, out of a shot area, 50 yards, 100 yards, 1,000 yards? You sit during the rut, and you see deer, buck after buck after buck, going down an area. I have about a 3 buck threshold where at some point you've got to pull the plug. And I'll tell you, the hardest thing in the world to do sometimes is being in the middle of a rut hunt when you potentially have vacation time. I mean, dude, this is all of the time we're spending this time in, right? So one part of your brain is saying, be patient, just be in the stand. If you're not in the stand, you're not going to kill anything. And I'll tell you, over the years, you be impatient, you pull your crap down, you get over to where you see deer are, whether you blow something out in the process or not, and sure enough, that's when you'll kill something. But you've got you've got to get to the point in your mentality where you're willing to sacrifice everything in order to achieve the real goal. And dude, you might blow a deer out, all right? But if you blow a deer out and you're not in the right spot and you watch him go by 100 yards away, what's the freaking difference? So
yeah, exactly.
you got to be aggressive, but you can do it in a very, you know, during the rut, man, that's the best time to be moving around, moving and shaking, so to speak, because, you know, you blow something out, they won't freaking know. They'll be right back 2 or 3 days later, or the same day or 5 minutes later, because they're there for a reason. It was either a hot doe or there's a doe bedding area where those bucks are coming and going and looking and looking and looking. Once you see that travel corridor for that season, you have to move on it. They're not going to come to you. You have to move right to them frickin' deer